Oh, it is absolutely apropos that what happened, and I'm going to describe to you in just a second to talk about what I want to talk with you about today, Streakers. Welcome to the Streaking Show. I'm Jeff Downs. I'm without my co-host today, Jamie. I'm laughing because I already recorded this entire show only to realize that the microphone was off. My little grandson comes sometimes and plays with my mixing board, and I had failed to check it before I started the podcast, and realized, and only after I'd recorded the entire thing and thought, where's the sound? I mean, the video was fine, but there was no sound. I was like, oh, what happened? I checked the mixing board, and sure enough, my grandson had turned all of the sliders off and had just had fun. And I don't mind him doing that. It's kind of fun that he does. Gives me a chance to check my levels, make sure everything's good. What I was talking about, and this is why I say it's apropos for what it is I'm talking with you about today. Jamie and I just the other day, and she's not joining me today, but she'll join us in the future. We're talking about the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being a problem solver. The difference in that mindset and what it affords you. That's what we're going to talk about today on The Streaking Show. Welcome. I'm Jeff Downs. Let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. Okay, so after that fun introduction and recognizing now that, yes, the microphone is working and I am actually recording sound, I'll get into this whole mindset of victim versus problem solver. Now, let me tell you, I got to set it up just a little bit. How did this whole conversation come about? The way that this conversation came about was Jamie and I were talking about movies that we liked. And not only movies that we liked, but ones that I would watch repeatedly. And she said to me something interesting. She said, you know, there's a certain type of movie that you watch repeatedly. And it's ones where they're solving a problem. And I thought, you know what, that's true. And she said, that's why you like The Martian so much. The Martian is a book written by Andy Weir turned to a movie starring Matt Damon. If you haven't read the book or watched the movie, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I'm going to give a little bit of that away during this podcast right now because it relates directly to the difference between being a victim and a problem solver. Even though a fictional book, it gives real life true principles on which, if each of us act, we'll be able to accomplish and overcome obstacles in our life. So the whole plot of The Martian, what it is it's a man whose name is Mark Watney, who is stuck, or Wadley? Oh, now I've forgotten his name, and I just had it just a second ago. Who is the character in the Martian? Who Martian Tian? Who gets stuck on the planet? Okay, let's just look at this real quick. Okay, Mark Watney. There we go. I had it. So Andy Weir is the author. Mark Watney is the character that's played by Matt Damon in the book, The Martian. Okay, we're all set now. So Mark Watney, he gets stranded on Mars. How great big storm comes up. They have to evacuate the planet, the astronauts on the planet, because this storm is going to tip over their MAV, which is the spaceship that flies them into space and gets them home. And so with that, they all venture out to get on the spaceship in the middle of this storm, and Mark Watney is hit by a great big satellite dish that breaks free in this storm, this great big wind that's up, and he gets impaled with a piece of the antenna. That immediately kills his biosigns. So the crew looked for him for a minute, immediately saw that he was dead, and therefore abandoned him on the planet. Wakes up after the storm. He peers out of the sand, is still alive, has this antenna in him, and has to make it back to their Martian habitat in order to repair himself and basically either die or figure out what to do. As he sits down and contemplates his scenario, he's pretty frustrated. And what then happens is he starts to solve problems. And what does solving problems do? Well, it earns you the right to solve another problem. And this is the mindset that Andy Weir writes of Mark Watney as he goes about his Martian experience, solving problems. And believe me, there are some horrendous problems that the character Mark Watney goes through. I mean, he has several different things happen, including getting blown up as he's trying to figure out how to produce oxygen in order to make food on Mars, or rain, sorry, not oxygen, but rain to make water and moisture on Mars. And then also having the habitat break in such a way that he has to repair it in order to continue living. He's got to figure out how to get from where he is 400 and some odd miles or longer away to where the next Martian crew is going to be. He's got to figure out how to communicate with Earth when all his communication equipment has been destroyed. Every single thing, it's fun to watch as he solves problems and earns the right to solve another problem. And it's like, and in the end, the Mark Watney character delivers a monologue and talks about to a group of aspiring astronauts what it was that happened to him on Mars. And he talks all about it. It's really fun. It's a great show. Love watching it. He talks about, in the very end, he says, look, you either solve the problem or you die. And I didn't want to die. And so if I solved one problem, that meant I earned the right to solve another problem and solve another problem and solve another problem until you are back home safely. And that's exactly what he did. Now, he could have been a victim of circumstance. Yes, the mission was risky. Yes, he was on Mars. But he did not plan for this storm. He did not plan to get hit by a satellite dish and impaled with an antenna. He did not have any of those things in the plan, nor did he cause them. They were done to him. And therefore, he could have been this person, a victim of circumstance. I didn't cause the weather. I didn't cause the storm. And now here I am stuck. And could be set in that mindset until eventually he died. But because he wasn't a victim of circumstance, because he decided that he was going to solve problems, that ultimately gave him the right to take on other problems or to solve the next problem and the next one and the next one. In our lives, we have this choice as well. We can either be a victim of our circumstance, be that the weather that none of us have any control over, or things that we chose to do and they didn't quite work out the way that we thought. I could be a victim of that and lay down in utter defeat, or I could be a problem solver and start with the next problem. So, speaking of solving problems, the mixer board being turned down without me knowing was a problem. And so I could have been a victim of that and said, oh, podcast just didn't even work today. Or I could look at it and say, you know what? This gives me an opportunity to do it even better this time and to give it a little bit more cogent thought and an opportunity to think about things in maybe a little bit different way and deliver the message a little more clearly. I could have, and that's obviously what I chose to do. It's kind of fun to be able to think about it and do it in this way. But as you solve problems, then what that does is earn you the right to solve another problem. In other words, it gives you the right to grow. You see, that's what it's all about, is growing. And that's why I love this in relation to streaking as well, because streaking is all about growth. When you set up a floor of success, which is a streak, something that you do every single day, aimed at who you want to be, an activity aimed at who you want to be, it gives you the opportunity to grow. And that growth is real. That growth is something that you can grab onto. It helps you stay alive in whatever situation you want to be in. And when I say stay alive, I mean it could be physically alive, but it also spiritually, emotionally, intellectually alive, being a continuous learner, being someone who's always aiming for that next opportunity to solve a problem. One of my favorite runners in any walk of life, and actually one of my favorite people, someone who I look to as a hero, is Eliud Kipchoge. Eliud Kipchoge, a runner from Kenya, is the only person to ever break the 2-hour marathon barrier. The reason he broke it is because he believed that no human was limited. He attempted it in 2017 and failed, ran in 2 hours, 25 seconds. So he needed to cut 26 seconds from his time. Now, for any of the rest of us, that 2 hours, 25 minutes, or 25 seconds, that would be an awesome time. I mean, I've run marathons. Believe me, that'd be an awesome, awesome time. For him, the failure prompted him to take a journey to success. So he started training for the next one, which would be in 2019. And he went for it. In 2019, aimed for another chance at breaking the barrier. He did a lot of things differently, and this story has quite a few facets in it. And I tell it in many different situations to illustrate that when you set up the inputs and the inputs that you want to do on a daily basis in order to achieve the output, you accomplish what you want to get done. Now, your 2-hour marathon barrier is probably going to be something different than actually running the marathon. But the barrier is meant to be broken. And how is it done? Through solving another problem. If you set streaks, one of the things that I love about streaking is as I set streaks, that gives me the right, or earns me the right, to solve problems. Because no matter what, a streak is always going to be challenged. Even when it's set as laughably simple, it's going to be challenged. And what I mean by that, it's going to be challenged to keep it alive. So what do? Well, you work on ways to solve the problems that might be presented from keeping the streak alive. For example, I was talking with Mark Washburn about a year and a half ago on the podcast, and you can go back and listen to it. He is the president of the United States Running Streak Association, or Streak Running Association. He said, and this is one of the most memorable parts of the podcast, that we streak runners don't look at weather as the problem. Weather is what weather is. It's an equipment problem that we need to solve. That type of mindset is what you can develop through streaking. The idea that I'm going to keep my streak alive. Sometimes we set up a streak and there's a routine that accompanies that streak, which is great. Routines can be beneficial and can help you keep the streak alive. However, when you're out of your environment, when you're not in the place that you're used to being, that streak can fail if it's set or explicitly relies upon the routine to be complete. But streaks inherently are independent of routine. In other words, it's just, when am I going to do this thing today? Not, did I get it done in the routine of my morning, afternoon, or evening? Now, I said routines can help. However, you have to have your streak independent of, and if my routine gets interrupted for whatever reason, that's a problem. And what am I going to do? I'm going to solve problems, because if I solve the problem, it earns me the right to solve yet another problem and keep the streak alive. And what is that streak doing? Keeping me running on the road to breaking the 2-hour marathon barrier. That's what the streak does. As you look at your particular area in life, whatever it is, think of it as solving problems. Let me finish with this story, and it's a good one. It just happened. Natalia and I, my third oldest daughter, I went to Washington, D.C. to drive with her from Washington, D.C. to Utah. Her and her husband out there serving an internship. They had purchased a car. They wanted to get that car home to where they're going to school at BYU, Idaho. But they wanted to move it from where they were in Washington, D.C. to Utah, where she's staying with us for a few weeks before she goes back up to BYU, Idaho. Her husband was not able to make the drive with her because he had to serve and finish his internship. And so she asked if I would come out and join her for a 30-hour road trip. Now, some of you may balk at a 30-hour road trip. I actually enjoy road tripping. Call me strange, call me weird. I enjoy it. She and I got in the car and started across this beautiful country of ours. 11 states. 11 states we passed through. Up through Maryland, across, let's see here, going through Maryland and then into Pennsylvania, a little bit of West Virginia, just tiny little bit, and then into Indiana, Ohio, across to Illinois into Nebraska to Wyoming, and Wyoming down to Utah. Hopefully I didn't miss a state there. I'll tell you, it was really enjoyable, honestly. We stayed the night in Des Moines, and so we broke the trip up into two 15-hour drives. But here's what happened. All this travelogue, here's what happened. What we thought was going to be 45 minutes turned into an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. We were on I-80 dropping out of Wyoming, and we came on a fork in the road. We could have turned on I-84, and I had a divine prompting that I should have, but I ignored it. We went on I-80. I-80, rain started to come down, then snow, and as we gained in altitude to go over Parley's Canyon, the snow really started to fall. And not only did it start to fall, it started to billow up in front of us. If you've ever been in a blizzard, you know that when your lights are on, and by the way, it was night. It was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. Your lights are reflected back to you by the snow. Now, in driving snow, when the snow is driving down in one direction or another, you can make your way through it. But billowing snow, which just billows up in front of you, has no direction. It is all completely what is called whiteout. You cannot see because the light reflects off of the snow, and that's all you see. We, faced with this situation, heading up Parley's Canyon, were then contemplating, okay, we got to solve this problem. Our destination to get home alive requires us to solve problems. So we started bouncing around. What is the problem we need to solve? Well, we need to be able to see. Well, what can we do to see? Turn off the lights. When we turned off the lights and had just the parking lights on, guess what? We could see. And we could see all the other cars around us. We weren't alone on the road. There were other cars around us, semis and other cars that were having a struggle getting up this mountain. In fact, the average speed was about 5 to 10 miles per hour, but we were moving, and we were moving slowly and getting there. In front of us then about 100 yards in front of us, a semi had jackknifed and a car had stuck underneath it, and we had to figure out a way to get around that. Now, some of you might say, well, didn't you want to stop and help? Here's the problem. You stop and help, and that causes more pileup because the people behind you are moving up the hill as well. So you really got to maneuver and solve the problems of how to get where you need to go and keep going in a way that you don't get in a wreck, that you don't put your life in jeopardy, and all those things. You might say, well, pull off to the side of the road. Again, if we'd done that, because of the way that traffic was moving, that could be another life-threatening thing. So we figured the best thing to do was to travel forward, solve the problem of being able to see, next solve the problem of being able to climb the hill in a path that would get us there, which we hooked onto a car, not literally hooked, but followed another vehicle that was going up. And we all kind of stayed in a straight line over this three-lane freeway in order to get the top of the canyon and then start to make our way back down. As we made our way back down, the snow turned to rain, and we entered into the valley, and it was rain. Probably one of the most harrowing trips I've ever made in a snowstorm. Her car, which is a new Bronco, performed marvelously. I'm telling you, fantastically. If you want to get a car that drives well in the snow, the Bronco is it. And that is an unsolicited advertisement for the Ford Bronco. But it was something that saved our life. It traveled so well through what it was we were going through in the snowstorm. And we solved that problem. Oh, one of the other problems is ice started to pile up on the windshield. So we had to figure out how to, while moving, snap the ice off of the windshield wipers and also off of the windshield itself, which we figured out how to do, snapping it and everything else, putting your arm out around, snap it, and boom, cleared everything up. And we made our way home. We made it home safely. And believe me, when I got home safely, I gave Jamie just the greatest, biggest hug. I said, that was a harrowing last 2 hours. So of the 30-hour trip, the last 2 hours were the most absolute harrowing. And we made it. we solve the problem. Now, it's not something I would recommend, and I'd recommend that you follow the divine prompting and go the other direction where we wouldn't have even hit the storm at all. But the mindset is real, and that is, if I solve this problem, I earn the right to solve another one. So let's not be victims. Let's be problem solvers. Let's set up the streaks so that we have a floor of success. And when a problem comes, to stop that streak, be a problem solver and find a way through it. And by doing that, you will have a significant amount of strength to face any obstacle that comes to you in life. Streaking is available at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or anywhere books are sold. You can also download it on Audible. And and you can also obviously download the app. I mean, the app is getting better and better every single day. As you go about setting your streaks, remember to line them up with who you want to be. If you have any questions ever, you can contact me or Jamie. I'm at Jeffery, Jeffery, at thestreakingapp.com. Or you can send a note over to Jamie at JAMI at thestreakingapp.com. We're always eager to hear your experience in streaking or answer any of your questions. And by the way, it's one of my streaks to answer them all. So hopefully you send them out to us. We'd love to hear it. Or if you'd like to hear something else on the podcast, one other thing, would you do me a great big favor and just like or comment or rate the podcast, review the book, or rate the app? That helps it get into more people's hands. And that's really what we want to do. We want to have millions of people be able to experience the power of streaking in their life. Well, thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day. Be a problem solver and keep streaking.